All right, I'm going to be addressing today a little question that I got asked on stream yesterday about knowing what you know now, because I have about 3,000 hours in game. How would you go about getting legendary armor? And to do this, you need to kind of understand what goes into getting legendary armor. There are 3 different ways of getting legendary armor. In this video, I'll be talking about the raid version. Actually, there are 4 now with the open world set in Secrets of the Obscure. So there are 4 different ways. Mukluk has a little video that I will put in the description about the 3 ways. That doesn't include the Secrets of the Obscure way because that isn't fully released yet. But in this video, we'll be talking about the raids way. Now, the one that you pick depends on what kind of content you're into, right? You might like World vs. World and do that instead. You might like PvP and do that instead. I have some pieces from PvP, so I've done the PvP process, and I have a majority of my pieces from raids. And I prefer raids simply because on a weekly schedule, I can go in, do the raids, and then forget about it for the rest of the week. It's that straightforward. So, let's talk about legendary armor. I'm going to swap to this character and just log in to show you the achievements. There are 2 achievements for legendary armor, Envoy Armor 1 and Envoy Armor 2. So as soon as we log in, I'll show you the achievements. Here we are. So I open up the hero panel, I go to achievements, and I go here and I type in Envoy. And you'll see right here, Envoy Armor 1 Experimental Armor and Envoy Armor 2 Refined Armor, this one. When you first start out doing raids, you need to understand that these are the 2 achievements that you're going to need to do to make your legendary armor. Right here, this one, Envoy Armor 1, the end reward is a full set of Ascended Armor. This is how on my alt account I got a full set of Ascended Armor. If you know raids, you can gear up any account really quickly. But as a newcomer to raids, as someone who's first starting out in raids, you should still make this your goal because it'll give you a full set of Ascended Armor. So, Mukluk does have a guide on how to do this. There are multiple guides on how to do this, so I'm not going to go into that. The second achievement will give you another set of Ascended Armor, but this is the Precursor Armor set. So this one you want to store somewhere safe. For example, I've got mine that I got from that achievement here. I haven't made all of it into legendaries. I've only made 2 pieces of it. These 2. You can see by the little legendary icon and the purple text, as opposed to the pink text here of Ascended, that these are legendary pieces. So here I have my Precursor set, and I'm currently working on finishing off my heavy armor. So I've got another heavy Precursor here, and I'm missing 1 more here. So when you're first going to be getting into raids and trying to make your way towards that first achievement, Envoy Armor 1, you're going to need to understand a couple things. Firstly, you're going to need to understand the raids themselves, right? Now, Mukluk has a really good guide. It's a playlist, which I'm going to link in the description, all about, it's called Get to the Point. And in, I believe it's 5 minutes at most or less, most of them less, he will talk you through each raid boss, the mechanics you need to know, what you need to watch out for, the different phases, because at different health levels, they will change. So for example, the boss will act differently up until, let's say, 66%, and then at 33%, he'll change again, right? And then you kill him. Or if you take too long, the boss will get like an enrage timer and start hitting a lot harder, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So he will run you through all the mechanics in way less time than I would take. It would take me a while to teach you this. So that is the first thing you need to know, is you need to know mechanics so that you don't wipe your group, because if you fail mechanics, the group suffers, right? You might even wipe everyone by failing a mechanic. So it is good to know the mechanics, and I would prioritize learning that over learning anything else. The second thing you're going to need to learn is what kind of character you want to play. So, obviously, in the case of the player who asked me the question on stream, they only have 1 character, a Guardian. Now, this does limit their options a little bit, but not too much, because every single class in this game is viable, right? So, every single class can build into a DPS build, right? Just a simple damage dealing build, which every single group is going to need. Now, when it comes to building your class, making sure you have a character that's ready for raids, there are 2 things to keep in mind. Gear, and then the actual build. I'm going to swap to a character that I use for raids, right over here. This is my condition damage, so simple DPS, deals condition damage, not power damage, Virtuoso, so from the End of Dragons expansion. Now, I got this build by going onto the Snowcrows website, which is a guild that specializes in specializes in raids. And I went onto the Discretize website, which specializes in fractals, and I compared the builds, and I realized, oh, they're not too dissimilar, so I can run one build in both contents. Some builds are like that, most builds are not. So it is good to make sure that maybe your fractal build might be slightly different to another one, right? Now, this character isn't actually ready for fractals. You can see that they have 0 agony resistance because they are still in mostly exotic pieces. Their weapons are legendaries because I happen to have legendaries for it, as are most of their trinkets because I've got those made, but these are all ascended, and the rings are not upgraded. Now, when you look at your build over here, you'll see I have this built as Conde Virtuoso PvE. I've got a Power Virtuoso build on this character as well, and then an open world. I don't know what this is. It looks like it might be Conde. I'm not sure, but I essentially copied the build directly from Discretize, and I've used this in raids very well. I've never had any complaints, and I've used it in strikes as well. When you are starting out in raids and you're making sure that your character is ready for them, you want to make sure you have the correct build, right? If you go in with a build that you made yourself, maybe you might be doing worse damage compared to what you should be doing. And there are ways to find that out, but it's a little complicated, and it's honestly just a little complicated, so there's no real need to go into it now. The simple, straightforward way, the way that I would do it, no fuss, is just copy a build, right? So if you find that there's a specialization that you really enjoy playing, so when it comes to Mesmer, if I go into training and I scroll down, let's say maybe you really enjoy Mirage, or maybe you really enjoy Chronomancer, which I don't have trained on this character, or maybe you really enjoy Virtuoso. You would just pick one, right? Whichever one you enjoy playing the most. You would head to Snowcrows and you would copy whatever build you can find there for a damage dealing one. As a beginner, you're going to want to do damage rather than focus on boons, simply because there are so many mechanics to learn. And up until you have a good grasp on the mechanics, I wouldn't recommend playing a support class in raids. Once you have the mechanics down, you can then start to sort of diversify and go, okay, I think I'm ready to play a little bit of support instead. This is also because if the supports go down, the group goes down. If the healer dies, the whole group will die. If the alacrity provider goes down, the whole group will suffer. Whereas if a damage dealer goes down, it's relatively low impact because while, yes, the others don't deal as much damage, they still deal some damage. So you could die at 25% on the boss and the group will finish it. Still perfectly fine. Another thing to understand when it comes to raids is that you will die, right? It's inevitable. The group will wipe. Some people might leave, some people might rejoin, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. It doesn't really matter. Wipes don't really matter. If you feel like you're wiping too much, you can absolutely leave the group. Just when you leave the group, go into the chat right here. So I'm going to go and let me check to make sure. Okay, cool. So in the guild chat, well, I'm in guild chat here, but you should put a minus sign and then whatever your role is when you leave the group. This is not necessarily helpful for you. It's helpful for the commander of the group because they can then know who just left, right? So let's say I'm playing Lag DPS, I would put this, Quick DPS, whatever. I was playing Ham, I would put this, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. Just a little minus sign and a little description of what it is that your role was. Because no one gets a message when you leave, everyone just sees, oh, all of a sudden we're at 9 out of 10. So it's good etiquette, right, to put what your role was right before you leave a group in raids. Because it helps the commander, when they go back onto the LFG, put a little listing. So here, raids, so on and so forth. So this is a good chance to talk about listing here. So if we look at the LFG, we see Wing 6, full clear, experience, looking for supports, 2 tanks, and Kiter. This tells us which wing that they're clearing, Wing 6, which there are 7 wings. Wings 1 through 4 are Heart of Thorns, and wings 5 through 7 are Path of Fire. Personally, and for legendary armor, you only need to do wings 1 through 4. So I've never done anything above wing 4, but when we look at this, we see, okay, wing 6, full clear. Now they put in experienced. Normally you'll find something that says KP, right? This is a kill proof requirement. When you kill a boss, when you look into here, you will get these decoration pieces. Now, when people talk about KP, they usually ask for the very last boss of that wing. So in this case, for wing 1, it's Sabbatha. For Wing 2, it should be, I think it's Matthias Gabriel. Wing 3, it's Xera. For Wing 4, it's Deimos, so Saul's Burden are the ones. You will get these when you open the chests that you get from raids. If you double click on them, you will consume them, and they will get put into your guild's decorations. This also takes them off of your account, so I would recommend not doing that. You can set up a kp.me account, which is a little bit complicated, and I might do a separate guide on how to do that, because I don't think that there is a guide on how to do that. It's pretty straightforward, to be honest. It's not really complicated. It just takes a little bit of time. But you're going to want to make sure you have the correct build, that you're keeping all of your KP. So you might store it on one character, which is what I do on my alt account, or you might store it in your bank, which is what I do on this account, because I have the space for it in my bank. And you're going to make sure your build is correct, and then you're going to make sure that your equipment is correct, right? So you're going to want to make sure that you have the exotic gear to be able to play your class in raids. If you have ascended gear, perfect, great. If you have legendary gear, perfect, great, right? But you want at least exotic. Now, with that all done, you're ready to do raids. That's when I would start doing raids, and you need to start joining what's called a training group. Now, if you look in the LFG, you will see, if we go into raids here, there is a training section. Usually, however, I don't see any groups here. So this to me suggests that most raid trainings aren't actually done through the LFG, but are instead done through actual guilds, right? For example, right here, we have an advertisement by Skane Gang, right? Which is, I think it's another content creators group on NA, I think. But apparently they're also on EU, so it says there. And this is, of course, a raid seller who is offering to carry people through the raids. These people exist. You can essentially ignore them unless you're looking to buy raids, but they are very expensive. And over here, a French guild which is looking for high level players, and they want to do world records for clears, which is pretty crazy. But there you go. So what I ended up doing on my main account as a completely new player to raids is I joined another content creators guild. I joined Loranity's guild, Lala, I believe it's called. I joined their Discord, and they ran weekly raid trainings, which meant that I could then every single week go into a Discord call where I did not have to talk. I could just go in and I would sign up for once a week a raid clear. We would clear one wing at a time. So we would only do wing 1 for 1 week. The next week we would do wing 2. The next week we would do wing 3. And this let me get a little bit of KP, and more importantly, I was in an environment where I could learn how to do the mechanics without necessarily being punished for it, right? So we didn't expect to run through the wing and clear the next one, clear the next one, clear the next one. No. We were taking things slowly, one at a time, going through the mechanics, explaining what goes into the actual raid. And the requirements for joining that was that I had exotic gear, and I had a build that was ready for raiding. And this is why I encourage you to go with a damage dealing build, simply because it's a lot more simple to focus on dealing damage than it is to focus on keeping up all your boons. And it lets you then learn mechanics. So that's my quick and simple guide to how to get started with raids and how to get started with legendary armor. When it comes to exotic gear, currently there is the Halloween Festival. So this is a little bit of a time-dependent one. But you can get a full set of exotic armor from going here into the achievement panel, festivals, lunatic wardrobe. These 6 achievements each give 1 piece of exotic armor, which is stat selectable, and I have a piece here in my bank, which is very lucky. The lunatic noble boots, and if I customize this, we can see it has Ends of Dragon stats, it has Heart of Thorn stats, and it has Path of Fire stats. So this piece of gear from those achievements literally has every single stat in the game. So this is a great way, if you're doing this right now during the Halloween Festival, to go ahead and get a full set of stat selectable exotic armor. And it's not too hard either. It might take a little bit of getting used to, but it is very doable. So there we go. That's my advice. So to recap, you're going to want to go ahead and look at the Get to the Point video to understand the mechanics. You're going to want to join a content creators guild to then be able to join weekly training runs that will guide you through the mechanics in a Discord call, so directly informing you of what's going on and giving you instructions and letting you experience the raids in an environment where you won't be punished, you won't get kicked from the group, you won't get sort of yelled at for messing up, right? They expect to mess up, and they're built around that idea of teaching new players. And you're going to want to make sure that you have exotic gear and a proper build, preferably taken from Snowcrows, when it comes to raids. With that in mind, you can then start doing raids. Once you're used to raids, that's when you can start to look at, okay, Envoy Armor 1 Experimental Armor, and you can start to read through the different achievements, right? There are a multitude of guides on how to do these achievements, both Envoy Armor 1, and Envoy Armor 2, right over here. But what you need to know is for Envoy Armor 2, you're going to need to make a Crystalline Heart, which requires 100 Crystalline Ingots. Now, Crystalline Ingots are a little bit tough. They are a Heart of Thorns item. You're going to need amalgamated gemstones to make them. So you're going to want to start doing your Heart of Thorns metas and picking the amalgamated gemstone at the end of them, simply because each one is 75. So if we need 100, 75 gold, which you can store up doing raids, absolutely possible, but it is a lot. And if you can save some up and start doing your Heart of Thorns metas, once a day, because it resets daily, that is a good start. You want to end up saving as many as you can, so you save as much gold as you can. You're going to want Ectoplasm, Fulgurite, which is account-bound, an account-bound item, which you can, as you can see, you can craft it from Obsidian Shards, Airship Oil, Auric Dust, and Leyline Sparks. So the first 3 maps of Heart of Thorns will give you currencies that you can then use to make Fulgurite. And you're going to want Crystalline Ore, which I believe you can get from the 4th map of Heart of Thorns. So here we go. Fulgurite right here requires Airship Oil, Auric Dust, Leyline Spark, and Obsidian Shards. And you can go on the wiki, if you type in for anything in the game, if you type in /wiki and then the item name. So for example, in this case, if I go ahead and do this, Crystalline Ingot, it puts it into the chat box. And then I can type in /wiki Crystalline Ingot, I press enter, and it opens up the wiki for it, right? It does a little search, and here it is. And it tells me, okay, you need this, this, and this to craft it. You need to have 500 in one of these crafting disciplines. You can get it from this achievement, and it's used in making either one of these. It's also a currency for this, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. 1 Crystalline Heart for the Envoy Armor 2 collection can be obtained, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So there you go. And this, afterwards, you can then click on every single item, and it'll tell you acquisition. You can click on that, and you can get it from Noxious Pods. Okay, they are chests in Dragon's Stand, so they are from the 4th map. And there you go. That'll run you through how to get legendary armor, how to sort of speed run legendary armor. So there you go. All right, have a great day, and I hope this was helpful to some extent. If it wasn't, pop a comment down below, or pop into the stream at twitch.tv/ I think it's Vince_2. I don't know. If you look in the Guild Wars 2 section, I'll probably be streaming. So there you go. That's a quick run through of how I would go about speedrunning legendary armor on a new account. Reach max level, make sure I have the correct build, make sure I have exotic tier armor that suits my build, and then I would join a training group. I would watch the videos to understand the mechanics. I would start doing the training runs to get used to actually doing the raids, Wings 1 through to Wing 4. And then I would start looking in the LFG, finding groups that don't require kill proof to join and start doing raids, right? And understanding that, okay, I am going to wipe, groups are probably going to disband at some point. I can always just join another one, and it doesn't matter if I don't clear all wings 1 through 4 in a week, because there's always next week, and this is a long-term goal. It takes a lot of raiding to make these legendary armor pieces. So there we go.